Okay, so now we're recording. And this is for all the people that are in the replay. It's PEMF 3 and it's week 3. Doesn't time fly? Holy cow. So this week we are going to watch, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 videos on different add-ons. These are all Samantha that, demonstrating the different add-ons that we've figured out. A lot of them have been just kind of came out of trying something new, and said the full body protocol was not getting where it needed to get to. So we've got the abs. We're going to do one on the abs, the abdominal muscles, which really is kind of goes hand in hand with the psoas. And then we've got the back and the SI, the front leg, the rear leg. Sam's going to do a little talk on treating PEMF through leg wraps and injuries. But next week, we have a full session on treating injuries. And this is a phenomenal one for you guys that are practitioners that see any injuries. Christina Cooper has really developed a protocol that is phenomenal, and she's really done so much research. So this gives you really all the information on the research and the just her whole process. And she has some great testimonials, personal testimonials, about how she revived her nerves. So that's a full segment next week on injuries. So then we also have the rear leg in the loop, which was a Samantha innovation. And then in the portal, we have the MagnaWave full body protocol. So if you've got a single loop, if you've got the MagnaWave, EquiPulse, PEMF 4000 or 8000, anything that's got the single loop as opposed to the Pulse Center's double loop, there is a full video on doing the whole body treatment with the single loop. And of course, these add-ons you can do. Well, you can't really get the leg in the loop with the smaller MagnaWave loops, but you can really kind of improvise and get to the same spots that we're doing today. So I don't know, you guys have any questions? Do you want to start it off with any questions? Janet, glad to have you with us, even though I can't see you and you're muted. And Natalie, glad to have you with us. Natalie, you're from all the way from Canada. So I'm glad you're here. And we've actually got a guy from France that was supposed to be joining us. Maybe he slept in though. And another guy from India. So there's people all over. We have some practitioners in Singapore and in Hong Kong and all over the place. So do you guys have any questions that you want to start out with? If you've got questions as we go through, you can write them in the chat box, which is over on the right-hand side of my screen. I don't know if it is how it is on your screen. Just type in the message at the bottom, and we'll get to it in between the videos. Or you can just jump right in during the videos. I mean, after the videos. So I'm going to share my screen now and put everybody on mute. And we're going to do the first one, which is the abdominal muscles. So I'm...
He's got us muted. Do you want to see this?
All right. Share screen.
Oh, did you hear him tell me I was muted?
Another add-on I would like to show you is the abdominal area. Obviously, Zoe is not tight or sore in her abs. She's not working very hard. But some horses you'll notice are very sucked up and tight in their abs. in this area. And, or possibly when you're working in this psoas position, you'll be getting a ton of reaction here, maybe even kicking and angry about that because it's uncomfortable. So you can add another position. It's not very easy for you. It's kind of a workout for you. And slide down here and spend a minimum of 2 minutes like this. If I would turn it up to get a little more pulsing, which I'll do. And she doesn't have much going on there. Some of them are going to be really sensitive here, so be careful. It's also good, of course, for any gut issues that the horses may be having. So that's another good one.
Unmuted. Can you guys hear that okay when I have that thing going? You can hear it, see it, okay? I always wonder if I turn off, I think if I mute myself that I mute the video, which is kind of annoying because at any moment Sherry and Samantha and Oliver could come in and start talking about the chicken. So if that happens, I'm sorry. I have no control over that. Otherwise, we'll go to the next one. So that was the abs. Any question on the abs? The abs I really like to do in conjunction with the psoas muscle. And Sam was really doing it more toward the rear. You can also do it right under where the girth is and go from where the girth is all the way back. This is a really great area. If you have a sore psoas, you for sure should do 2 minutes on the abs. I always check it and see if there's any pulsing. If there isn't any pulsing, usually I do not do the abs. I always do the psoas though. The psoas is really as a working muscle. What I find happens is that as a horse gets their psoas sore, they start borrowing from their abdominal muscles, and their abdominal muscles also help bring that rear leg forward. And so when you see a really sore psoas muscle, you will also see a sore abdominal muscle. If you see a sore abdominal muscle, they're usually really, already pretty sore, and you're starting to see some performance issues. So when you get that squared away, you usually see some great improvements on the performance side. And of course, the abdominals and psoas muscle are used very extensively in just about all the different disciplines. Anywhere from if you look at a horse in slow motion, right before they're going to jump, they're pulling their rear legs underneath them. They're almost in the exact same position that the reining horses look like when they're doing their sliding stop. And race horses, you can catch them in mid-stride. Their rear legs are all the way up forward underneath them. Dressage horses are obviously using their rear legs and pulling those forward. And, any of the working horses are going to use their psoas and their abdominal muscles. So that's a good one to lead with. So the next one is going to be the back and the SI, which really goes hand in hand with the psoas because so many people think that the back is sore when it's really the psoas. So ta-da.
So I want to mention some add-ons that you can incorporate into your full body protocol that I don't do every time, but that you can have in your toolbox for when you feel guided to. One of them is targeting the SI area, lumbar area, top of the psoas from the top of the body, where you can take these loops stacked. You can place them here. In my routine, if I were going to do this, it usually would be after I've done the psoas area. Notice I have a very low intensity. For whatever reason, it tends to be very sensitive and they don't usually appreciate a strong pulse there, just a little tiny one. Now in this placement, I have the loops themselves actually stacked over that sacroiliac joint, remembering that the intensity is actually strongest within this loop along the loops themselves. So this is the weakest point. As we get closer to the loops, it gets a little stronger. I'm always trying to send a more strong point into the joint. So this is a really good one also for just warming up the top line, horses that are kind of locked in this area, just really getting that warmed up and feeling good. You can definitely do that farther up the back if you see fit. If you find that they're really sore up in this area, tight, rigid in that area. And you can also do it farther back on the pelvis. I have it placed pretty evenly right between the two hip joints. So those are two really good add-ons, or excuse me, three really good positions you can have to use when you see that they could use some extra attention there.
All right, so that's the back and the SI. The one thing you'll notice is that she had the loops in a very round, really round area as opposed to kind of stretching them out and making them oblong. You'll notice that the most intensity or the highest intensity that you can get is if the loops are in a perfect circle. The more you make them oblong, the less intensity that you're going to have. Of course, you also have the center of them that has less intensity. As the farther away you get from the loop, the less intensity that you'll have. But if there's nothing that's blocking the magnetic field, you'll find it diminishes very little. So you're looking as a way to get the maximum intensity out of it. You just keep the loops in a complete circle. So, and then also bending them like this does, you know, if they have a circle and then you start bending them, that does lessen the magnetic field as well. So, so that is the back and the SI. Now we're going to go to the front leg.
All right, guys, I'm going to go over legs. If you are using a MagnaWave or Equipulse machine, you can treat your small butterfly loops pretty much the same as I'm using these small loops from the Pulse Centers machine. When doing the legs, it's important to note that they definitely take a higher intensity than the rest of the body. So when I start, I turn up the intensity to a pretty good pulse, like about there. If you can hear, it's tick, 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 tick. I'll take the loops, and for regular maintenance, I'm going to be working on the knees, cannon bone and tendons, and phalanx joint, sometimes the hook. There's no reason why you can't work up the forearm, and in the case of the hind end, the gasket. It's just a matter of figuring out what's a priority for basic maintenance. If you're just trying to reduce swelling, increase circulation and that sort of thing on a performance horse, that would be what I do, are these three spots. So I'm going to hold the loops butterflied around the knee like this. I'm going to check in with my horse, make sure that they're okay with that. Then Then I'm going to turn the intensity up within their comfort zone. As you can see, it's pretty strong. And then I'll either hold them for a minimum of 2 minutes, or I'll Velcro them. If I Velcro them, always going to Velcro with a little tail that I can very quickly just pull off. Really, if there was a problem, I have the Velcro so loosely connected that if she were to do anything, it would really just come undone. So that's what I would do for that spot. If I knew that she had a knee problem, arthritis, an injury of some sort, or I just wanted to spend more time on her legs, I would spend at least 2 minutes this way, and then another 2 or more this way. It's just another way to access the joint. Remember, joints are a lot of dense tissue bone, a lot to get through. So you do need a stronger intensity, and sometimes coming from different angles just allows a better chance of reaching inside the joints. So after spending some time there, I would just slide this down onto the cannon bone where I'm targeting the tendons and ligaments, the suspensory ligament, which is commonly injured in performance horses. If she had an injury, or an injury was brewing and she has pain, maybe bad arthritis, something like that, she would not tolerate this strong of an intensity. So if, say I slid down from her knee to here, and then she really reacted, started picking up her leg and that sort of thing, that would indicate to me that something in here was sore. So just bear that in mind. You, of course, can spend some time with it coming from this way. It doesn't sit as nicely. But for general maintenance, I pretty much never do that. It's your call. So after a minimum of 2 minutes there, I'm going to slide down to the fetlock joint. Same goes there as it does for the rest of the leg. You can go from this angle, or this angle, or anything in between. Excuse me, folks. Good. Now, for the foot, that's going to require the most intensity to get through that hoof wall. So again, you can hold it around the foot like so, or you can Velcro it. In this case, I'm going to Velcro it with a little tail there. And you can come at the foot from all different angles. Now, I'm going to turn it up higher. For horses that have an abscess, or you suspect there's an abscess brewing, we've seen outstanding results in 2 to 3 sessions of putting this on the foot. If you know where the abscess is coming from, targeting more that spot, but if not, just spending every couple minutes rotating it around that foot. It's incredible. Some people have actually seen abscesses pop in front of their eyes, which is pretty neat. So you can come at it from this way, butterfly, with any part of the leg. You can also, if you know of a specific injury you're trying to pinpoint, you can double these, stack them, and come from one side. What that will do is just make it more intense from that one direction, versus when they're in between the magnetic fields, those 2 magnetic fields are working together to reach deeper. So it's just a different way of reaching into the foot. You can use the medium, if you're using pull centers equipment, you can use the medium-sized loops in their legs, of course. Realize that the smaller that loop, the smaller the magnetic field, the more focused and direct the delivery will be. So if you have a specific injury or an abscess or something like that, you definitely would, it'd be ideal to use the smallest ones you have, but the mediums will work just as well, or will work, pretty comparably. So that's how I would go about the front leg.
All right, that video ended quickly. So any questions so far? Now, notice that we are calling these add-ons. Just want to stress this point that really do not want people to be thinking that you can do spot treatments. Spot treatments are really, from my perspective, really kind of a going out of business strategy. When you start doing spot treatments, either because of time or because of the customer's budget or whatever, you're really not giving the person or the horse the benefit of all that PEMF can do. When you have an injury, you really want to treat the whole body at least, as 72 hours is the optimal, every 72 hours, and then the specific spots. Because that activates the body's natural healing capabilities. It really kind of jumpstarts the whole body's thing. It oxygenates the blood, so that in itself helps clean the body of inflammation and bring the waste and toxins out of the cells. But it also stimulates the immune system, and it recharges all the organs. It gets their body going. So it really stimulates their whole body's healing. It will also really keep that blood oxygenated for at least 36 to 72 hours. So you're really putting the body in an accelerated healing state that will help the specific injury. And versus if you're just doing the specific injury, first off, the body or the person's mind or whatever really only concentrates on what is the most sore thing that's going on with them. And I'll give you an example. Is that when I first started, I would go into the racetrack and I would treat these jockeys, and they would, they're in between races, they don't have a lot of time, but they're all really sore. And so they would like, oh, my back is killing me. My back is killing me. Can you treat my back? And so I would just treat like oh, I have this pain in my lower back, just treat the lower back. So I would treat their lower back and, for 2, 3, 4 minutes or whatever. And then they would go out to the next race and they come back. I'm like, so how's your back? And they're like, my back is killing me, but now my back is fine, but my shoulders are killing me. And what did you do to my shoulders? It's like, well, once you took away the back pain, now the body goes, hey, my shoulders have been pretty sore too. Now I no longer feel the back. Now I'm starting to feel the shoulders. So what happens is that your body then goes to the next pain. And if you just start treating spot treatments, what you're always going to be doing is, number one, you're not going to be getting the natural body's healing capabilities and all the benefits of healing the whole body, but you're always going to be chasing after the next injury, the next sore spot. And so if you have, like, I've done this, believe me, I have done this. I had a back problem and I treated the back, and then my hip was sore. And then after I got my hip sore, my hamstrings were sore. And then my calves and my feet were sore. It was like I just started chasing after all these different things. I kept thinking to myself, why are these other places now all so sore? And that's how I realized that. You will also find, as far as a business practice, you really want to treat horses and people multiple times to get the best results. And so you really should be setting expectations that even though I'm treating you, if you're better, you're healing, but you're not healed. And in order to get the best benefits, you should really be doing multiple treatments over the course of a couple days. So ideally, at least 3, for people, 5, 10 treatments. Really, when the pain is gone, there still is cellular damage. Those cells have not completely healed, and they need to be recharged to get all the way up to the fully charged thing before they are healed and 100%. So that's my take on spot treatments. Not a good idea. The other thing is that how do you use the loops or PEMF to find out specifically where they're sore? And this works really well on the front end of their legs and their hoofs. And But you can really use this for anywhere. And the way you do it is that as you see, you saw Samantha saying, you know, you get it on their knee and you start turning it up, and then you'll notice they'll start reacting. Well, a horse is, if a horse has a very healthy leg, there's no soreness in there, you really can turn the small loops up just about the full way. So what you do is you start low and you start turning it up, and you scan the leg up and down the leg, or wherever it is that you think there is an injury, and you look for areas of like increased sensitivity. And if you don't find any the first time, well, you turn it up a little more, and then you scan the leg up and down and look for the spots of sensitivity again. And then as soon as you find that spot, you kind of go back over it, like you're getting up to the knee. And as soon as you hit the knee, they go, ow, ow, you know, they raise up their leg. And then you go back and forth over that area and find out specifically where they show you the signs of resistance. And that's really a very effective way to find out really exactly where they are sore. And you can do the same thing with abscesses, and with like if you have a horse that has a hot nail, where you think the farrier put the nail in the shoe a little too close and it's sore, you can just move the rings over the nails and find out if there's one spot that they give you a area of sensitivity. This is how you really find out where those abscesses are and where the sore spots are. And then what you do is, once you find a sore spot, you turn it back down a little bit so they're not reacting. You stay there for a couple of minutes. After at least 2 minutes, then you start turning it up again. And what you'll find is that after 2, 4, 5 minutes, you'll be able to go past that area that they were sensitive on, but you'll get up to another layer of like, oh, now this is starting to be sensitive again. So you just stay there and you just keep working your way up the intensity until you can get to the point where they are able to have the machine at full intensity. And when you do that, then you pretty much know, okay, this area is healed. If I was treating a suspensory, a torn suspensory, or whatever, over the course of a couple of weeks, I would notice that once I got to the area that I could really turn the intensity up to the same level that the other legs are, then I would call the vet and have them have it re-x-rayed and say, okay, how does this look now? And you'll find that you will probably be able to heal injuries like that in at least half the time. So now the one question we get a lot is there's a couple different manufacturers out there. MagnaWave, Equipulse have a foot plate where if you're treating their hoofs, they're standing on a plate. Response Systems has a bigger rubber mat that they can stand on. How does that compare to the small rings? I've used them both. I've used them all. And the first ones I used was Response Systems, and it's a nice rubber mat. I thought, oh, this is great. I can treat the horse's feet and the Response Systems is wireless. So you turn it on and you can't adjust the intensity, and the intensity isn't real strong, but I thought it was a real good way to get horses that are feet sore. And a lot in the hunter jumper world, there's a lot of foot sore horses. But the ones with sore feet would not want to stand on the darn mat. So that became a real problem, is actually getting the horse. There are a few horses that will, there are a lot of horses that won't. And so that was the major problem with that. But the one thing that I did notice when I started treating back with the small loops was that the small loops were way more effective, because you are basically surrounding the hoof with the magnetic field and you're coming at it from all directions. When you're coming at it just from the ground up, what happens is the magnetic field comes up and it starts to diminish. The more dense the tissue, the more it will diminish. So the hoof wall and the bottom of the hoof has very dense tissue. that will make the PEMF diminish a lot. So what happens is it really is not getting all the way up into the hoof, and especially it kind of goes up and goes into a cone shape. So you're really not getting the outside, especially around the coronet band. So I found that the plates, besides the fact that you're strapping something onto the horse's hoof, if anything happens to that foot plate, then it's strapped on. You got nowhere to go. At least with the coils, you got that little loop. If you've done the Velcro the right way, there should be a little tail hanging off. You can just pull the tail off and the loops fall down. A lot of times if the horse really does something, you know, the loops will break away anyway. But you know, we always started using that tail on the Velcro so that it just breaks right away. And I got my handy little Velcro thing here. So you got it like this. It's just like hanging like this. You just pull it off, you know, as opposed to having it like this and then wrapping it all the way around. So now that is really, really hard to get to. So you only need to just connect it just a little bit, and then you can easily just break it away. So what are you girls laughing at? Do you like my Velcro? I actually just keep this thing. This thing just is like, here is like one of those little things that I don't know, Olive dropped off that I play with. I just thought, hey, I'll have a little demonstration of it. And you like the yellow Velcro? That was one of the things that we did at Pulse Centers, that when we wanted to get really cool, we're like, hey, what if we got yellow Velcro? You like the yellow? Yeah. You guys have the yellow? No, they probably stopped doing that. You can ask them. You can also get it. Yellow Velcro. Amazon. You can get anything at Amazon. I swear, anything. My wheel broke on my chair. I got a new, really cool, solid wheel. In a day, they were like $12. You know, I thought, oh no, I'm gonna have to get a new chair. Nope, Amazon. So anyway, I digress. Are we ready for the next video? This is the rear leg. So here we go with the rear leg.
So I'm going to show you how to work on the rear leg. It's essentially the same as the front leg, but we have a different joint. Obviously, we have the hock here. So for this horse, if you have the Pulse Centers equipment, I might prefer using the medium loops on her hocks just to cover more area. At the moment, I have the small loop, so I'm just going to go with that. So I'm going to have the intensity turned up, just like I did with the front leg, kind of to a medium pulse. I am going to hold them on her hock, so I know that she's settled. I may not always just be crouched down if I don't know the horse very well, and you know, I'm doing this kind of for video's sake. You know, you may be standing more in this position to protect yourself. So once I know that she's accepting this loop being on her hock, and note, I prefer to use the loops in the direction to have the joint facing the direction that the leg joint goes. So I have this joint going back because the hock bends back. I have it facing forward in the front leg because the knee bends forward. So from here, I'm going to Velcro it. You don't have to Velcro if you don't feel comfortable. So leave a little tail as always. I don't have them tightly together. There's a gap in between the loops to fit comfortably on the hock. Then I would leave it there for a minimum of 2 minutes. I find that with the hocks, performance horses are those that have that have sore hocks. You can leave this on for an extended period of time while they're eating hay if they're tied and well behaved, and it does wonders. It definitely will reduce the amount that you need to inject the hocks. It might extend the period of time in between injections or eliminate your need for injections at all, because it's helping the body create fluid for itself, because that's what PEMF does, is it's helping the body do for itself what it needs. So after several minutes of it here, I might carry on normally for regular maintenance just to the cannon bone. You can also spend time coming from the side angle. It's just another way to reach into the joint. You can also, to really get into this opening of the joint here, you can stack them and come at it from this way, holding it or Velcroing it around the back of the hock if you wish, with a longer Velcro. Just depending on how much you're trying to put into the hocks. But for normal, basic maintenance, I'm going to continue down, just down the leg. I'm going to place them on the cannon bone and tendons there. Spend several minutes, 2 minimum. Then move down to the fetlock joint and do the same for that. So again, basic maintenance, hock, cannon bone, fetlock joint, sometimes the foot, if they're prone to foot soreness or bruising, or they have had an abscess in the recent past or currently. But I'm going to also show you how I would address the stifle joint with these loops, which you absolutely, like with the front leg and the forearm, can work up the gaskin. But for the stifle joint, using the small loops, I would recommend standing, but for the sake of the video, you can place the loops there, right in the opening, right in the crease of the joint, because that is your entryway there. You can have them stacked with the loops right in that crease. You can also butterfly them, but if using pull centers equipment, realize that this hinge is a dead zone. So you're going to want to hold these together and place it right in that entryway of the joint, and turn up the intensity within their comfort level and targeting the stifle that way. If you're looking for soreness in the stifle while you're pulsing, you're going to want to place your hand on the flat spot of the stifle, on the inside of the stifle, I should say, like this. And if they have soreness in the stifle, usually you'll see pulsing around it, so you'll also feel like a quarter size circle on that flat, smooth part on the inside of their stifle. You'll feel a pulsing there. They also may react by kicking out or showing signs of discomfort that way. So that's how I would use the small or medium loops on the stifle. And I do want to mention, if I'm working on any of these joints and I know that there's a problem, that there's soreness or injury going on there, realize that all of the soft tissue and the connective tissue around the joint is affected by that too. So basic maintenance, I might not address things like the gaskin, all this stuff. But if they were sore around the hock or the stifle, I would definitely want to spend time pulsing these areas as well. And that's how I would go about the rear leg.
All right, so that's the rear leg. One thing I would definitely caution about is when you are treating a horse that has a stifle issue and you put those loops on the stifle area and they're sore there, they will definitely kick out. I got you really got to you really got to watch it. The first time that I really started, I was probably just treating horses for a couple of weeks. I was at this 2-year-old sale in Timonium, and this woman who became a very good client said, "Oh yeah, this cute little mare, I think she's got some stifle issues." And so I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I'm, taking the loops, and at the time I was using a MagnaWave that had the big loop, so I butterflied it and did a figure 8 and made my own little butterfly, and I stick it on that stifle area, and bam, she kicked me. And like, oh, okay. And so I'm like, all right, I got to figure out another way to do this. So I realized you really have to, when you're going to test the stifle area out, you really got to stand way up by the front leg and hold that hip, so that if they do kick, either cow kick or straight back, that you're out of the way. And then once you get it on there, you will absolutely see. I think it was funny to Sam saying that you have this little quarter size pulsing area that you'll feel on the inside of the stifle, because that's exactly what it feels like when there's a sore stifle. That's exactly what that feels like, and they will be definitely sore. Now that's something that you definitely want to alert the vets to and say, hey, this is something that we're seeing. You don't want to diagnose, certainly don't want to tell them their business, but that may be an area where they want to get the stifles injected and look at that. Pulsing it will definitely help and will extend the time that they need, between the times that they need to have injections. In fact, Margie Engel has said that her horses are going much longer between times of injection, and her husband is a great vet, and they do everything they can for their horses. So if you don't know who Margie Engel is, she's probably one of the top hunter jumper riders in the world, and she just won a big show in Hamburg, Germany, a big FEI World Cup on a horse called Dika. And she has 2 of our systems and uses it all the time. So definitely will help get those joints feeling better for much longer between injections. So that's the rear leg. Now we're going to go on to, I think this one is the injuries.
Okay, now I would like to talk about injuries. As you see, Zoe here has an injury. She recently cut herself and had to have stitches. It's been several days, actually about a week. The wound is definitely clotted and there's no bleeding going on. You do not want to pulse any wounds that are actively bleeding, as the PEMF will increase circulation when you're trying to stop the circulation in that area temporarily. So I'm going to show you how I would handle pulsing this, which is through the bandage. Notice you can absolutely pulse through the bandage. Now, if you're working on other injuries that the horse is being bandaged for, you want to make sure you're not pulsing over any heat-inducing topical medications, because this will just create more heat. So you could potentially irritate the skin. So if you're working with something like that, liniments, DMSO, sweats, you want to wash that off with soap and water before pulsing. She doesn't have anything like that, so we're going to just pulse through the bandage. You will definitely see a decrease in the time it takes for wounds to heal and close up. You'll see a reduction in proud flesh and all the stuff you're trying to avoid. It's very beneficial for wounds, helping them heal more efficiently so you don't get as much scarring. It's fabulous for wounds. And just reducing the inflammation, helping the horses feel better, a reduction in pain and all of that. So I do also want to mention that with any injury that you're pulsing a horse for, you want to not just pulse the localized area of injury. You want to incorporate full body with the localized treatment. I recommend in an ideal setting that you would treat the horse's full body according to the full body protocol, a minimum of every 72 hours in conjunction with localized pulsing. Now that could mean pulsing every single day on the injury itself and every couple days on the body and that injury. You could pulse the injury itself multiple times a day, realizing that more is definitely better. You cannot overpulse, especially when you're trying to heal an injury.
All right. Well, I was glad Samantha didn't contradict me on the time about 72 hours and doing the full body too, because when we first started, there was all kinds of different theories on that. Some people said you couldn't pulse for more than 4 minutes, and then you had to wait 2 days. And so now we know that you can really pulse as much as you want. You can't overcharge a cell, just like you can't overcharge your cell phone. And it's a lot like your cell phone in that you want to charge it, and so you charge the cells all the way up, as opposed to putting the cell phone in. You wouldn't charge your cell phone by going like, okay, I'm gonna charge it for a little while, and then I'm gonna take it out and charge it for a while and take it out. You put it in and keep it in. Same with your cells on your body. You want to charge them, and then once the cell is charged, the cell no longer reacts to the magnetic field. The magnetic field of the cell just repels the magnetic field of the machine, so it goes right around it. That's why the cell stops pulsing. The way the cell normally, if it does not have a healthy magnetic field around it, the magnetic field of the machine affects the cell, it stretches the cell, and then when the magnetic field of the machine turns off, it relaxes the cell. So that every time the machine goes on, it stretches, and when it goes off, it relaxes. Once the magnetic field has been reinstated around the cell, the magnetic field of the machine just goes right around it, like you can't put two magnets together. So that's why you'll be feeling it pulsing, and then all of a sudden, hey, I no longer feel it pulsing anymore because your cells have recharged. So, let's see. Any questions? You guys have any questions? If you do, put them in the chat. We're coming up on an hour. We've got one more. And so the way this thing is supposed to work is we do an hour of instruction, if you want to call it that, with the videos and all that. And then afterwards is really as much information as you guys want to have. If there are no questions or anything, then we can call it an early evening. So if you've got some questions, get them out now and write them in the chat, or just make sure you ask them when we come back on. So so this last one is my favorite, the rear leg in the loop. Sam developed this one really as a way to get to well, there's a couple different reasons why you put the rear leg in the loop. One of them is the hamstrings. You can really get deep into the hamstrings. The other one is that a lot of times there are injuries inside that rear leg, and then this also really gets the stifle area. So there's a lot of really good reasons why you do this rear leg in the loop. For a lot of people, like I know, some people that just don't feel comfortable putting their rear leg in the loop. So if you're feeling not quite sure about that, and the horse may be moving around, especially if they're really sore in there, like I said, the stifle, if it is a stifle, they will kick out. All you do is just drop the loop. Drop the loop, step away, and let the horse do whatever they're going to want to do. The last thing in the world you want to do is be struggling with trying to keep the loop in place if a horse is reacting and kicking out. So you just drop the loop falls on the ground. If the horse steps on it, it's not that big of a deal, especially if they're on shavings. So then you just start over and turn it down so that they're not reacting as much. So the rear leg of the loop really can be extremely safe, and it can be really effective for those areas that you're not getting, because if the injury is more on the interior of the leg, then every time you put the magnetic field on the outside of the leg, it has to go all the way through the bone, and on the other side of the bone, it will create a hot spot or a shadow. And so there you want to bringing it come from the other side, so you're filling in that shadow. So, all right, Natalie's got a question. Can a PEMF session make a horse tired that day and the following day? What would you recommend giving the horse the day off? It does whatever the horse really needs it to be. Like if you'll find a horse is really lacking in energy and you treat them, especially if they're in chronic pain, and you treat them, they will want to sleep for sure. If a horse is really kind of an energetic horse and you get them out of pain, they may feel really energized. So my thought on what you do on a performance horse is, after you've treated them a couple of times, it really doesn't matter that much at all. You will know what the best thing is for this horse. I think for the optimal thing is to treat them the day before a competition. But I've had many horses, especially really hot horses or older horses, that the day of the competition, like right before the competition, is really fantastic for them. We had this one jumper that was, I think his name was Oklahoma. He was, I think, 18, 19 years old, really a fantastic jumper, knew his job, but he tended to get, he had a lot of chronic sorenesses. Secondly, when he got into the ring, he tended to get really hot. So they always were struggling to warm him up. And the more they warmed him up, the hotter he got. So by the time he got into the ring, he would just have this meltdown. But he was an older horse and he needed a lot of warm-ups. Otherwise, he would get into the ring and he would be all stiff. And so, and this is, Grand Prix, they're jumping 5-6 feet. So, so what we found out is if we treated him like an hour or two before, he didn't need to warm up that much because he felt really good. He wasn't stiff at all. And because he didn't warm him up that much, he didn't get really hot. So for that horse, it worked really, really well. Just minimal amount of workout and boom, right into the ring. And he started doing it. Really added another 2 years onto his career because he just flourished after he started getting treated. So now race horses, on the other hand, you probably definitely want to do it the day before. If you have any questions, you'd want to do it the day before and then see how they are. I know for me, I feel great after I get treated, but I feel the best the next day. And I think the optimal thing is to treat them and then let them get a good night's sleep, get a lot of hydration in them and a lot of nourishment. And the next day they should be full of energy. So that's my typical thing. But again, horses are individuals. You have to see what is best for the individual. And I know Samantha's talked about this. For competition, to get them right for the best peak for a competition, it's best to do 3 treatments. Say if they were going to go on Saturday, I would do working backwards. I'd do Friday, Wednesday, and Monday. That is by far the best general treatment protocol for getting a horse peaked in a peak performance. So do it every other day leading up to and culminating on the day before. So anyway, so we're gonna do the rear leg in the loop.
Another add-on I would like to show you is the rear leg in the loop. In the full body protocol, I show you that I pretty much always do the front leg in the loop. This one I do not do every time. If I have a horse that is on stall rest, rehabbing, that doesn't have a known stifle injury or anything going on in the stifle or hamstring or in this general area, I'm probably not going to do this. But for upper level performance horses, I pretty much always do the rear leg in the loop. There's just so many components that we're targeting that way, and they usually show a huge spike in their performance when I incorporate this. It's the same as the front leg in the loop in that if there's an issue, you just simply drop the loops and step away. I'm not tying this to the horse's body in any way whatsoever. So I will start by holding my loops like this to make it easier to get the foot in. And then I will just cautiously bring this up snug. I will take my hands and hold these two parts of the loop together and place those right in the entryway of that stifle joint, right in that crease. No, not up in the flank area, as that would be very ticklish and uncomfortable, and you would be missing the stifle joint itself. So you want to stay right in there, and then just pull this snug up along the hamstring. I am not getting very much pulsing, so I would like to turn it up. Unfortunately, in this position, you have to just set the loops down. I just leave them there, assuming the horse will just stand there, hopefully. And then I will go and turn it up just a little bit. If the horses move, just go with them. Usually they rest their hind leg like this and lean into the pulse. I even would like it a little bit stronger. I feel a pulse, but I would like it a little bit more. There we go. So let her just get situated. You can probably see a nice pulse there. Just because she's moving around, I'm not bothered because I definitely want to push the limit on this area so I can really get a lot of intensity into that stifle joint here. I actually find this to be my preferred way of addressing a sore stifle. I find it to be more effective. I like that I'm targeting a lot of other soft tissue around the joint, as well as the lower hamstring.
All right, so that's the rear leg in the loop. Did you guys like that? Do you guys use that a lot? Yeah. For dressage horses, yeah, I could see how that would be, you would use it a lot. All right, so do we have any questions? Questions. Oh, yes, Natalie wants to know if she can ask any questions that are off topic. Yes, absolutely. You can ask away. Ask whatever questions you like. One thing, when I'm listening to Samantha talk about the rear leg and the loop and about reducing inflammation and stuff like that, one thing I do want to add to that is that as you pulse a horse, and this is one reason why you want to pulse multiple sessions, is that you'll see inflammation, especially there in their legs, that will go away without even treating their legs. You will see as their overall body releases inflammation and clears out of their system, that you'll see a systemic release in inflammation, and you can see that take effect in their legs. We in fact treat our horses regularly. Samantha treats her competition horses like once a week, and even with that, she's no longer as poulticing and wrapping, and struggling to keep inflammation out of the horse's legs. The horse's legs are like tight and don't have a lot of swelling or anything in their legs. So the one thing, if you do have swelling in the legs, so what you want to do is that to release inflammation, you want to have the pulsing be as slow as possible. So if you think about it, what you're doing is the inflammation is nothing more than lactic acid or waste and toxins accumulating in the cell. So as you turn the magnetic field on and have it pulsing longer, it holds that cell open longer, and that allows the oxygen, the waste and toxins to flow out, and the oxygen nutrients to flow in, and releases that inflammation better. So you want to have that pulsing be slower as opposed to faster and not as powerful. So that's the way to deal with inflammation. So Natalie, if you want, you can turn your video on, but so you have a client ask me if PFL can help with bog splavin. I don't really have specific. Do you girls have information on that? No. Wish Sam were here. She would know more about that. But as a general rule, though, if it's cellular, it's going to help. I have to get back to you on that one. I have not particularly treated anything with that. Any other questions? And, anytime you guys have questions, you can always ask them in the class, or you can ask them in our Facebook group. Oh, abdomen, if you suspect ulcers. Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of things that you really want to do if you want to treat ulcers. First off, the whole body treatment. Secondly, so you're really helping the horse when you do the whole body. The necklace, that gets the whole abdominal cavity from the front. The way that we did the abdominal, that gets it from underneath, and even doing it from the back, as you're doing the back, that gets it from the top. So what you want to be doing is you want to be getting it from all different directions. So the best thing that you can do for a horse with ulcers, though, is treating them with that full body protocol, and then also adding on to the abdominal muscles. So you're bringing it from the bottom up, and just really surrounding the stomach and intestinal area with PMF. And then when you're doing that, you really want to make sure that they're drinking plenty of water. But yeah, it is a great thing for ulcers. Ulcers are something, though, that it's not going to just do one treatment isn't going to do it. This is something you really need to do on a regular basis, and then get them to add the diet, and they want to be feeding a lot of hay, in not letting the horse's stomach get completely empty. So those are things that you want to be doing in conjunction with treating a PMF. So that's a good question, Janet. Any other questions? Janet, glad to have you on.
I just have a quick question, just to update on that. How long, like I haven't had good results with ulcers, but I know it's in comparison to, they're going to be a month on Gastrogard, which is multiple thousands of dollars. So what's kind of the selling point of PEMF? How often would you say, you know what I mean, on ulcers?
Well, you know, the Gastrogard is, first off, it's a drug. It is very expensive. But, you know, ulcers is a kind of a chronic thing. And it's not something that you're going to see immediate. Well, first off, the horse will get immediate relief in that their stomach will feel a lot better right after being treated. Zoe had ulcers, and she was, you know, chronically had stomach soreness. So after she got treated, you could just tell she felt so much better. But you do need to treat it in conjunction with the, you know, feeding routine, and so that they don't have, you know, the reason why horses get ulcers is because their stomach gets empty, their stomach fluids start eating away at the stomach wall, and you know, it's the way that we're feeding and taking care of them is the main problem. So you can fix the ulcer, but if you don't fix the problem, which is, you know, keeping their gut full of hay and forage like they're used to, then the ulcers are just going to come right back in. And I've heard that, you know, and I think this is probably a conservative thing, that, you know, at least half the horses in the show circuit have ulcers. And you can see if a horse is really kind of cranky and, you know, stomach sour, that there's a good chance that they're having that. But you know, horses are kind of stoic and they just keep going. So but the full body protocol and adding the abdominal on there, just doing the full body protocol is going to help them a lot. So, and the more, of course, the more you can do, the better it is, you know. So someone contacted you regarding working on your dog's spinal tumor. Dog lost mobility in its hind legs. Worked on something like this? Yes. Cautious about working on her dog. Don't be cautious about working on her dog, because dogs are fantastic. And actually, we have, I think it's in week 7, we have a whole section on Kelly Ligarati. You might want to go into the portal and look at Kelly's how to treat dogs. She has a really great recording on that. But treating dogs is really phenomenal. The one thing you have to do when you're treating dogs is that they're very, very sensitive. And you want to make sure that you don't turn it up too much. You pay really close attention to their cues, but yeah, I've seen dogs with actually Cody, what was his name? Cody Melton. He did a whole thing on his dachshund that was completely lost use of its rear legs, and he treated it I think in 90 minutes a treatment for over a 5-day period. Don't hold me to that, but he documented his progression with this dachshund that went from not walking to walking, and it was pretty dramatic. But we've seen a lot of great successes with dogs that have the hind leg issues, and as you treat them, they get mobility back. But it's a lot like treating a horse, in that you're using the small loops a lot like the big loops, and depending on how big the dogs are. We treated a whole group of dogs a couple weeks ago, and these were mastiffs, and they were huge. And but you still kind of have the same protocol as with a horse, and you want to do the full body, but you'll use depending on how big the dog is. Do you know what kind of dog it is? But you can use those small loops and treat the whole body, but then use the small loops like you would the large loops on a horse.
He's a large pit bull.
A large pit bull?
Yeah. I was just cautious about the tumor and like, is there any way it could rupture the tumor or anything? Like, could I make the dog more sick?
No, no.
It would only benefit him.
It would, yeah, it would only benefit him. It would benefit him a lot too. Yeah, you'll probably see a shrinking of the tumor. Although, it's one of those things, when they're that chronic, it does take a lot of treatments. But you should position the with the owner that you'll see some results after the first time, I'll bet. I'll bet you'll see a little bit of improvement in the mobility, and you'll see a lot more comfortable dog. And then after 3 to 5 treatments, I would say you would see a noticeable difference. I would not even be surprised if you started seeing them gaining some mobility back in their rear legs. And then if you do it enough, how old is the dog?
He's 9 years old, and he only lost his mobility about 2 months ago. So it's fairly recent that it's come on, and he's just walking with a little wheelchair right now.
Yeah. So you have a good chance of really, possibly reversing, at least making that quality of life for that dog tons better. But don't forget about doing the full body treatment. Yeah, go and watch Kelly's video, and then use I would say use the medium loops. Do you have a medium loops?
Yeah, I've got the mat. I was thinking about starting them out on the mat and then use maybe medium loops and then the butterfly, small butterfly over the area.
Yeah, I would watch Kelly's, but because she basically just does just like the horse protocol, but only with the medium loops. So yeah, make sure you do the full body, and then on the specific areas. So, and the other thing is that watch a lot for the compensatory sorenesses, because on a dog that's doing that, that's lost the ability to use its rear legs, it's probably got an enormous amount of front end soreness as well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sleep apnea. I think Sherry's wife or Sherry's mother has that. I don't have any experience with sleep apnea. I don't know. Do any of you guys have that? That would be something that would be worth asking in the group, and I can have Sherry do a little research on that. That to me is something that's more of a structural thing in their throat. So you're not really going to be able to find or to heal things that are structural. But what you can do is that you can dramatically reduce the inflammation that surrounds the area that aggravates some of the symptoms. So if you release some of the inflammation, then you see symptoms start to diminish. And that's what I would suggest on that. But is that from Carrie or from you, Michaela?
Yeah, it was from me. Actually, I was at a holistic wellness fair last Saturday, and it was one of the questions that someone had posed to me. I guess she's pretty reliant on a CPAP machine, and was just wondering if this would be something that could help either, kind of not make her as reliant on the CPAP or just help in some way. So I thought I'd ask the question.
Yeah, what I would do is that, of course, if they're just coming in for treatment, it's kind of hard to do this, but I would do this before I go to bed. Is that I would treat my full body and then finish off at 7.8. And that's just going to make them sleep in general better.
Right.
But you know, I would treat it's sleep apnea. You're really talking about like you know, a constriction and obstruction in their breathing area. So, you know, like if it is something that is really structural, you know, like they have blockage that's physical, you're not going to change that. But I would be willing to bet that you would see some reductions in discomfort and some symptoms when you start to release the inflammation. And, you know, you're really going to know that after about 3 treatments or so.
Right.
So if you did like 3 treatments every other day, and I would, that's the way I would do it. You know, I would say do at least 3 treatments. 5 would be better.
Okay.
And see if they're getting relief.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
and because, so this is what typically happens is that people get diagnosed with something, and then they kind of lock in on that, like, oh, this is what I've got, you know, and they don't realize that, well, there's a lot of other things that kind of surround it or contribute to it or compensatory from it. And when you start doing PMF, you start peeling away those other areas. So what you end up with is really the chronic thing. After about 3 to 5 to 10 treatments, you know, you're left with what is really chronic. Now, will that change the chronic thing? Probably not, unless you can, you know, if it's structural, for sure not.
Right.
But for me, just to give you an example on my back, for me, they were saying that I needed to have a hip replacement and that my hip was really, really bad. And this was, I also had a really, really bad back. And they also said that I needed to have back surgery, that I had herniated discs, and that I needed to have back surgery. And this was going back to sophomore year in high school. And so when I started treating myself, first off, my back got a lot better. My hip took a lot longer. So they're like, oh, so you got to get your hip replaced. But my hip finally did heal, and all the soreness, there were just a lot more things that had been, but the hip was completely compensatory soreness. And it was really inflammation oriented. And so as my body released the inflammation, the pain went away. And the fluids in my joint, my hip joint, came back. And so as a result, right now, I have no pain, no lower back pain, unless I do something stupid, you know, like rake leaves all day, or, you know, but you know, and that's what you'll see with a lot of chronic problems. You'll see that first off, it's chronic. The body has stopped healing itself. So you will get the body to jumpstart and start healing itself again. And then, you know, over a period of time, you will start to see the lesser pains and injuries peel away. And then it's always amazing to me to see what you're left with. And I would say the huge majority of the time, it has nothing to do with what they were diagnosed with. So it's kind of like I'm diagnosed with this, but, you know, most people you'll come in contact with that have chronic pain, it's not just one thing. You'll see many things. And a lot of times they're all very related. And if they're cellular, then PMF is going to help. If it's structural, it's not. So as you start treating them, you have to give them the expectation and frame it enough so that you can have enough time where you can start peeling away these things and get down to, you know, what's left. And then, like, for example, people with knee problems, you know, you can treat them, and the first couple times their knee actually may hurt worse because you're reactivating the nerves, you're stimulating the nerves again, and, you know, they're basically, their knees have been worn the nerves away. But as you release all the inflammation, you stimulate the nerves again, rehabilitate the nerves, but then you release all the inflammation and get the amniotic fluids going back in their knee. You see a lot of people with knee problems that get, you know, fantastic relief from it. But if they have something structural in their knee, you're not going to fix that.
Right. Right. Okay. Thank you.
All right. You guys are asking good questions today. So do we have any other questions? And for all the people that are watching on the replay, if you have questions, you can always email them to me. Or the best way to do it really is to go into our Facebook group and ask them in the group, because we have fantastic people now in that group that will contribute as well. So if there aren't any more questions, I'm going to go get me some Nutter Butters. Yay. All right, everybody. Well, you guys have a great week now, and next week, make sure you join in for that, because she's got quite a long video, and so we'll get that started right away. But it's Christina Cooper and her wounds. To me, I think two guest speakers that we had Christina with wounds, and then we have Kelly Ligarata with the dogs. Both those things we've just kept them going because both of them were so outstanding. These girls really worked hard on doing the videos, and I actually learned more from the second and third time. So there's a lot of good stuff in it. So, but this wounds thing, the way that she does the wounds with her 90-minute treatments, she gets amazing results. And as a result, so many people have started doing that, and they're getting great results too. So it really, really changed the game for a lot of people. So, all righty. That's all for this week. That's all I've got for you. Hope you guys have some fun and go out and make some horses feel good. Thanks a lot. Bye.